Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&A, so let's go ahead and get this started. All right, first question. Hi coach, is going flat-footed healthier for your knees while squatting compared to squatting in squat shoes? I generally believe that squatting completely barefoot is the way to go. And I'm not the person to come up with this. I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Chris Duffin is the one who convinced me of this, and he and I've actually talked about this before in private. Phenomenal coach, by the way. The guy is just I'm pretty sure he has gorilla genetics or something. He's got gorilla genes. He's not human. The guy squats over 900 for reps. But he kind of turned me on to the whole squatting barefoot thing and doing all my standing work barefooted. All right, this actually builds ankle and foot health and everything else. It will actually help strengthen and hypertrophy all the connective tissue and everything around your ankle, your feet, everything else. And that's the reason he does it. It teaches you to root to the ground better, and it builds better stability. Now, when we come over to the whole point with knees, we're talking about basically knee angle and dorsiflexion. What I'm going to say is that weightlifting shoes are not called squat shoes. They're called weightlifting shoes, actually, because they're for weightlifting, Olympic lifting. They're a crutch for people who are still building their mobility. Okay, they're a crutch for people who are still building their mobility. Now, realistically, I'm going to ask, how deep are you trying to squat? Because if you're just trying to get an inch below parallel, which for most hypertrophy purposes is about ideal, you would need to eventually be able to build that up without using shoes. Okay, the weightlifting shoes are there to really help us do a full squat. Okay, they're there to help us build a full squat. That's an ass to grass squat. And for those who are unaware, when I talk about an inch below parallel, I mean that at the bottom of the squat, the crease in your hip is an inch below the top of your knee. A full squat's all the way down. A full squat could be 3 or 4 inches deeper than that. Right? Very pronounced downward angle towards the hip from the knee. From a side view, from a rear view, from anything. You should be able to see that deep from any angle. Be like, oh yeah, that's a full squat. Okay, the squat shoes are there to help you do a full squat. They shouldn't be necessary to get to a parallel squat once you have taken some time building mobility. And yeah, I'm going to argue that if you need squat shoes to get to parallel, it's probably not ideal for your knee health. Probably not ideal for your knee health. Another reason I prefer the box squat. I would rather people box squat. Learn on the box squat. It's easier on your knees in general. You can do most of your training volume that way, and then you only need to do your normal squats when you need to do them. But with a box squat, you can actually get to full squat depths, which is pretty close to what you guys see me doing right now. Getting close to it. Not quite full squat, but close. Off my current box. Right? They can help you do that with less knee shear in general. Like, that's your actual better option. Go barefoot and do a box squat, or at least flat-footed in a box squat. If you really are concerned with knee, ankle, foot health, everything else, that's the combination I'd recommend. That's what I do, and it works phenomenally well. I practice what I preach there. All right, next question. And this is going to be a very nuanced one, because this is a misinterpretation of what I said. You said that eating a surplus of calories from lean protein won't make you gain any fat. It doesn't make any sense. My college nutrition professor says eating anything in a surplus, including protein, will be stored as fat. No, technically you cannot store protein as fat. That is completely impossible under normal conditions. There's pathways there, but biologically speaking, it's like 1,000,000 to 1 that you could ever store a single gram of protein as fat. You might oxidize the protein and store other stuff as fat. Okay, we need to make that very, very clear. Number 2, let's come back over to the point. I have never said a surplus of calories cannot make you gain any fat. That is not what I said. What you're misinterpreting is when I said that protein overfeeding will not cause fat gain. And that's not based on my opinion. The only studies that have looked at it determine that. Okay, hypothetically, in theory, if you're at maintenance calories, if you add more calories to whatever you're eating, you're in a surplus, and therefore you will gain some body fat. Okay, that's the prevailing hypothesis. When this has been tested by adding large amounts of protein to maintenance calories, this has not been the case. Okay, when we look at protein overfeeding studies, again, this is not my opinion. You have to go look at the data yourself. If you want to disagree with the data, that's fine, but you can't make an argument with me. And I had to ban this. You guys see all those replies? I had to ban a troll in here who coming in and telling me I'm stupid, I'm wrong. I banned him. Okay, I don't need that stupidity. Okay, coming back over. I said you're under the assumption that adding the calories always creates a surplus. It's not a surplus, and that was a point that we made. The protein overfeeding studies, it took people who were at maintenance calories or on a structured diet, right? These are done where under a nutritionist and everything, under dietitians, to where they took people who were training and they put them in protein overfeeding, which means they took their maintenance calories, they took exactly what they were eating, recorded their carbs, fat, protein, everything, and said, okay, let's add 500 calories of protein to what they're already eating. You're talking about adding like another 140, what is it, 125 grams of protein a day to what they're currently eating at maintenance. They didn't gain any body fat. It stayed at maintenance. It stayed at maintenance. And what this tells us is that protein overfeeding doesn't create a calorie surplus. Okay, that is what we're saying. Take the word surplus out. Adding a bunch of protein to your diet will not make you gain fat, even if your calories go up. And it's because carb and fat intake did not change, but only protein intake changed. And if you add very significant amount of protein while keeping the other macros constant, the studies show that you don't see weight gain. It changes your calorie outside. There's thermic effect. There's other things happening. NEAT and thermic effect go up dramatically with protein intake. Protein overfeeding, adding large amounts of protein won't make you fat. It will raise your maintenance calories. Does that make sense? That's what we're saying. It's a complete misinterpretation of what I said. So in other words, the higher your protein goes, the higher your maintenance calories will be. Like if you wanted to gain weight quickly, the best thing you do is just drop your protein down if you struggle to eat enough. I'm not saying it's a good idea for body composition, but if you wanted to gain fat quickly, like I just want to bulk up real fast, I want to gain weight. You struggle to eat enough, well, cutting protein back would be a good way to do that. I wouldn't recommend it, but it would work. All right, next question and last question of the week. Hi, Jason. Why do I see some people set up a good deadlift position, but then instantly when they start to pull round their back, what is the cause? Thinks in advance. Well, maybe they're not set up in a good position. Okay? Maybe what you think is a good position is not really a good position. All right. First of all, we need to assess, are they actually getting tight? Okay, because usually if their hips shoot up, what you're seeing if their low back round is because their hips start shooting up before they break the weight off the floor. So what could be causing this? Well, number one, they're just not tight enough. You might think that they're in a good position, but I might look at their position and go, your deadlift start position looks like hammered dog shit. Right? Doesn't look good. Start to arm bend happening. Trying to squat the weight up in some cases. Well, the squatting it up wouldn't cause that actually. Right? They're not really tight. Scapula aren't pulled back and down. Okay, what else could cause this? Using too much weight for their lat strength. That could be it too. It's weak lats. Weak lats. Guys who haven't been doing any rows or pull-ups or anything who think they're going to start deadlifting. Weak lats can make you not be tight enough at the bottom, and then as the hips shoot up, you'll start rounding the low back. Now, I'm not necessarily worried about rounding upper back if they're an advanced lifter. Because you need to understand, thoracic rounding is not the same as lumbar rounding. But generally, if you're seeing this happen, it's usually going to be a weak mid-back, weak lats, combined with lack of tightness. Now, they could just be lacking tightness and they have the back strength, but they're not engaging their lats and they're not getting tight. And they're not pulling back. They're bent over too far and then they try to squat the weight up with their butt. Okay, that could cause it, but having weak lats will simulate the same effect even if they're trying to do it correctly. So it's either a lack of tightness and or a lack of lat and mid-back strength. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.